Hi there, and welcome to the Anita Chat podcast. I'm your host, Anita Rombo, and this is the podcast for growth-oriented women to have authentic, real talk. Nothing is off the table here, but as an intuitive self-relationship coach, you'll find the content gravitates towards mindset, intentional action, spirituality, and all things wellness. So if you're ready to learn, laugh, show up, and glow up to be the best version of yourself, grab your favorite bevy, settle in, and we've got lots to chat about. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of I Need to Chat. Today, I'm excited to welcome another guest onto the chat, Karen Maharaj, and she's here to share about her life journey, her spiritual awakening, and her book, Struck by Reality. Karen's journey involves experiencing a life event that is statistically has 1 in 15,300 chance of happening. So this is a real treat for us. Karen, welcome to the show.
Hi, Anita. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. The treat is all ours. Karen, can you tell us a little bit about your life journey?
Well, I'm not sure if you know, but I was born in Trinidad and I migrated to the US when I was a child and worked on, the normal things, graduating from high school and college. Recently in my life, I had worked to create the life that I wanted. I was very successful. However, my personal life fell apart. I rekindled a connection with my ex-husband and we started to see each other again. I became pregnant in 2012 and we decided to get married again. So this is my second marriage to the same person, and it turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy. After that, I had a miscarriage. Once we were certain that we wanted to be parents, we decided that we were going to push through and we did IVF. I had 2 failed rounds of IVF. And at that point, I was physically, emotionally drained, completely drained. But we took a break and accepted the situation for what it was. And maybe 6 months later, we began the process to adopt. The adoption process, just the paperwork and getting background checks and everything, took about a year. The cool thing was that we were matched pretty quickly once the process was done. And our baby was due in August 2017. At that time, though, the whole 5 years of being together was consumed with trying to be parents, and we were both exhausted. We did not go through with the adoption. We actually got divorced in November of 2017.
Oh, wow. That is an unexpected turn for sure.
Mm-hmm. Before the marriage ended, though, my dad had a stroke that paralyzed him on the right side of his body. My dad lived in Trinidad, and I made several trips to visit him in those last couple of years. So seeing him paralyzed was really, really hard for me emotionally, but I pushed through. Then on the morning of January 7th, 2018, my pet conure, Pepper, a green cheek parrot, passed away while she was sleeping. I was brokenhearted. It was really hard for me, mainly because Pepper had been in my life for 19 years. I was always the person who chose spirituality to resolve my hardships in life. My friend Brenda invited me one day to a day of silence at the Florida Community of Mindfulness Center. So I signed up. And after that day, I spent the most time at the center. Everything they had, I signed up for. I was just so happy to be in that space because it was feeding the hole in my heart that I couldn't figure out at that point. That year in 2017, they had a New Year's Eve ceremony, and I thought that that would be the best way to start a new year, especially because the typical thing to do is to stay home and watch the ball drop and drink champagne. But I chose a different path. On the way to that ceremony, I had this clear calling inside of me, and the direction was that I was supposed to wake up in my life. I was supposed to practice living with the reality in front of me. And as I practiced that, which meant mindfulness, as we hear the concept today, I was supposed to write about it. So I started that process immediately. And that's the first week when Pepper passed away. I realized that I could not just snap out of living in my mind, because this was the way I'd been living for 44 years. Planning, thinking, being an overachiever. And as I started to observe my inner being, the thoughts and the emotions, the actions and the reactions to everything, I started to understand why the avatars, the great teachers say, live here in the present moment. It's not something you can explain how to do. But what I knew was that I had to undo my way of being, thinking, and showing up in the world up to that point in my life.
Wow, that is really interesting. And it's so nice that you found your peace and found a way to cope through your mindfulness center. That's really beautiful too.
Thank you.
So Karen, I just wanted to touch base on the concept of awakening for a minute. In case some of the listeners tuning in aren't familiar with the term, I personally define it as a moment in time where you realize that there's a greater depth to life than you previously were aware of, and that everything in your life is kind of reevaluated with that lens, right? Like perhaps you realize you didn't know yourself as well as you thought, or you question your purpose or your existence or your contribution to life, and then you just desire to show up differently. Is that how you also view awakening?
Yes. And as you can tell from my explanation of kind of how it fell together, initially it may occur because of major life events. So I had them just back to back, to the point where you feel like, am I broken? Is something wrong with me? Am I the human garbage? You know what I mean? You have all those questions. The initial shift internally, when you have the conscious awareness that everything changes constantly. That's how I would explain it. And, also that we're not living by the models our ancestors lived by. I would say it's a realization that nothing needs to be forced in life. Mm-hmm. And that was a hard one for me to face. It's also a continual process. And in my current understanding from continuing to read and study and write, I feel like it's the deeper understanding gained from consciously observing and participating in present moments. Words cannot fully explain it. As awakening unfolds, understanding deepens, and as understanding unfolds, awakening deepens.
I think you explained it beautifully. I would totally agree with you. It's an ongoing process. So you might be initially awakened and question certain things, but your life experiences and the evolutions of you that come with your life continue to move you forward in this journey of self-discovery and continually awakening to your authentic self and identity. Okay, Karen, so you talked about a whole bunch of different events, the loss of children, an adoption that you decided not to move forward with, change in relationship, illness, and passing of your father and your pet. But we at the very beginning also alluded to a life event that not many of us have experienced. And I'm sure that the readers are curious about this life event. You experienced something that had a 1 in 15,300 chance of happening. Can you tell us more about that event?
So it's interesting how it happened. My house is being worked on, and my friend's dad is building the cabinets for the bathroom, and we needed a plumber. So he found a plumber. The guy came over, his name is James, and he connected the new faucet, and everything was great. We also connected at that moment. And on June 24th, 2018, it was a hot sunny day, and we drove down to the beach in James's car. He just rebuilt his engine, and he was excited to drive. We giggled, we laughed, we sang along to tunes. We were so content in our space and present with each other. We arrived and we parked in the south side parking lot, and we walked up to the pavilion. He was like, we'll have lunch up there when we leave in the afternoon. And I agreed. We looked at the birds. He pointed out the birds and said, they look like they're older birds. And I agreed with him. So we walked quite a bit. We got in the water. We splashed around. We splashed water on each other. And then we sat up on the beach. We had our towels down. I got in the water. I watched James swim off to go snorkel. And with me, I brought my beach bag with sunscreen and Glennon Doyle's Love Warrior. I was into that book at the time and reading, and it was so good. And I hung out there in the water. He was swimming all the way, and he was looking at me the whole time he was swimming. And then later, a couple hours later, I started to notice that there were clouds in the south, coming from the south. And it started to sprinkle. So I covered everything up, and I started to walk in the direction that James was in. And as I was walking, we met up, and we started to pick up the pace because it was started coming down. Would you like me to share a little bit from the book?
Sure, that would be great.
So out of nowhere came a torrential downpour within a few minutes. We were both drenched. James was now about a half step ahead of me, walking on my right side. Suddenly, I felt a shock. From the corner of my right eye, I saw a flash of light. A thin spark next to the right side of my head. It appeared about half a foot away from my body, slightly above my head. I realized it was lightning. It looked like the lightning I'd seen in the sky, except this glimpse was barely noticeable, and it was probably the length of my hand. That was all I could see in the split second before I felt the impact to my body. Immediately, I started to feel a buzzing, tingling sensation in my brain and was confused. There was no time for thinking. I was taken by surprise. The electrical sensation became stronger. I started feeling a pulsing in my brain, and I slowed my pace in reaction. James was now in front of me. Unable to process what was happening, I lost control of the beach bag, and its contents fell to the sand. The pulsation became more of a surge, and I felt it spread down my neck, around my shoulders, and then in my chest. The impulse around my heart was much stronger than I felt in my brain. From there, I was blown back, and I was screaming because I was seeing the lightning over his head. So I kept screaming, James, James, James. But the weird thing was that I couldn't hear myself, nor could I feel my entire body. And then I felt this strange sensation of like almost like a pull, like I was struggling to get off, to get up to him so I can help him, but I couldn't move. And it felt like I was looking at myself from a different angle. But then I looked and I saw his head drop. So his chin dropped, and then he fell over straight forward. I crawled over there, and there were a couple guys to the left. And James, I screamed. I said, "Can you please help? Please help us." I didn't acknowledge that I needed anything. I wanted to help him because he wasn't responding. It was an intense moment because time stopped. Time completely stopped. And there were several people who came to help. They did CPR. They took us to Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and it when they pulled up, I can never get over this moment. When they pulled up the ambulance, I was praying Psalm 23, and I don't pray. I didn't pray before, but I was desperate because it was so overwhelming. A beautiful day had turned into some crazy thing. We were struck by lightning. As they were wheeling him out of the back of the truck, they said, he's gone. And then I just lost it.
Wow. I'm speechless. Thank you so much for sharing this incredible story. I can't even imagine experiencing what you did, but how did life change for you after the incident, after losing your friend and having your own experience with lightning? Talk about living in the present, right?
Yeah, I got my wish. I got my wish because in that moment on the beach, there was no other moment. Ever since that experience, I've been more awake than I've ever been. It pushed me further down the spiritual path. I turned to writing to cope and process the health conditions I experienced from being struck by lightning. Initially, I refused. They asked me maybe 3 times or 4 times in the emergency room. I was in shock and I refused to get looked at. It was overwhelming. And I was just sitting there holding his hands, memorizing his fingers. It was just overwhelming. And then I started having trouble finishing my sentences. I am feeling like I'm confused and I know what I want to say, but it's not coming out, or I know that I have the word in my dictionary in my brain, but I can't find it right now. So my friends urged me to go see the neurologist, and he encouraged me to go see the psychiatrist because they needed to discern how many of my symptoms were traumatic brain injury versus PTSD. And then I ended up having a flare in my brain that showed up on an MRI, and I've suffered a stroke. The part of my brain that I had the stroke controls the left motor functions of my body. So I have pains on the left side, tingling and numbness under my feet and hands, and shooting pains. I have cognitive deficits, as you will notice very slightly. I can, but you'll notice that I slip up on words, or I don't quite get them out correctly. I was never that. Words were easy for me, so it's quite a shift. But what was really hard was that my life changed and I forgot the things I knew that I did at work for 8 years, like the basic maintenance things. I started to realize I was having memory issues, and then I was seeing these lights flashing constantly in front of my eyes. And in addition, I felt like my brain was pushing up against my skull. Well, all of that has been diagnosed as having migraines, and I've been treated. The medications help me to manage them. Emotionally, I experienced panic attacks and PTSD associated with driving in the rain, seeing lightning. We had a huge thunderstorm last night. I was a little bit unglued. But I keep telling myself to push forward because there's a greater purpose as to why I'm here. 2 people walking on the beach side by side. One is, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a deeper reason. And that's my faith that I hold on to. My only thing that I can use to push forth with life. Spiritually, I've changed my outlook about everything. There are no words to explain this. I do find that I meditate every single day for at least an hour, and that has helped me to expand in the capacity that I need to have deeper understanding about life. And that's why I write, because I want to share these things.
Such a beautiful mission that you have found as a silver lining in all of this. One of the things that strikes me, pardon the use of the word, is your positive mindset after you have suffered many losses and setbacks. Do you have any words of advice for others that may also be going through a difficult situation or life transitions?
My heart says make a conscious decision to bring awareness to everything you do. This will help to eliminate what you don't like about your life and be relentless in your effort to be a better version of yourself every day. So today I woke up and I said, okay, I was a hot mess last night. I'm going to be a little bit better today, a little bit healthier. That's simple. It's that simple goal. And then I did a little exercise and I meditated. And then I got on your podcast. So surround yourself with people who are uplifting and supportive. Remember you're worthy and deserving. I have a couple more that are I think are really important. Most importantly, I want people to consider being present with those they love every day. Tomorrow's never guaranteed. The one thing I learned was that you hear people say things change in the flash of a moment. I really understand what that means. So love deeply, tell your loved ones you love them before you go to bed or when you wake up, all of that. And another important thing to do is your beliefs and views on life are created from what you consume, whether consciously or unconsciously. Filter out the negativity. Stop watching negative news. Maybe listen to the Anita chat more. Save it as your favorite.
Thank you.
And she's a great life coach, and I hope you all will consider connecting with her because she has helped me tremendously as an author.
Thanks, Karen. That's really kind. I couldn't agree more, right? That your beliefs and views are created from what you consume.
I try to be in a space where I feel uplifted. So I like to be out in nature. I really made an effort not to stay away from, the water, kayaking, or going for walks on the beach with a friend because I did not want to become that person who had something happen and then it totally changed my relationship to the beach, which my entire life I've been at the beach by myself, sitting in a cabana, reading my book, and that's all I need. So I want to continue to have that quality of life.
That's a great practice. So it's good that you didn't shut yourself off from those things that you enjoy and you find healing and nurturing for your soul. So on that note, Karen, how did the lightning strike support the writing of your book? I know that you poured your heart out onto those pages to cope, but do you think that this book would be out in the world if that strike didn't happen to you? Because your calling and the writing process had started before the lightning strike.
No, I don't think I might have published this book, and I don't think it would have been out in the world. I've written 2 other manuscripts that were never published. Watching James die in front of me catapulted me to complete and publish the book. It made me have a sense of urgency about it because I wanted to do it in honor of his life.
It's a beautiful tribute to James and to what you went through as well. In terms of lightning, this week is actually Lightning Safety Awareness Week. As an advocate for lightning safety, are there any lightning safety tips that you can share with us?
Everyone needs to have an app on their phone that tells them what the weather is going to be throughout the day, every day. Especially if you live in Florida or on the East Coast. Take it seriously. The lightning in the sky does ground. I always, never thought twice about lightning, like being scared of it or anything. I could tell you millions of times where we just played in the rain, but no, when it's thundering, find shelter. Do not have any metal objects on your person outside when it's raining. It might have been the difference between me being alive or not. If you hear thunder, seek shelter, especially if you're on the beach.
Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your story, your book, and educating us on lightning awareness. What's coming down the pipeline for you?
I am currently in the process of publishing Peter Crane Mountain Goat. This is a story of one mountain goat's journey to lead his herd to new territory while overcoming adversity.
It's so exciting. I can't wait to dive into it. I seem to recall, though, that you have a personal connection to goats. Am I right? Did you want to share the story behind that?
That is funny. You remember that. That's from our writing group.
Yeah.
So yes, I was told by an astrologer many years ago, in my 20s maybe, that if I really wanted to understand my life mission, I would need to study the life of mountain goats. And I took it seriously and I started to look up mountain goats. And the only way for me to process how I could relate to them and understand my own life mission was to write a story. So this story started maybe 15 years ago. And the process of writing the story has been the cornerstone of understanding myself. And my life journey has really been, like they say, know thyself. I feel like that's been true for me. I've always been searching for deeper meaning.
Thank you so much, Karen, for coming onto the chat. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. How can people find you?
My website is KarenMaharaj.com. I'm on Facebook at Maharaj and Instagram at Maharaj. Anita, thank you so much for having me on the Chat podcast. I admire your work and the positive impact you have had on women. And I also am very grateful to be part of your author community. I wish you great success.
Thank you so much, Karen. That's really kind. We'll be sure to include Karen's contact information in the episode description. Thank you again, Karen, and thank you, friends, for tuning into this episode of The Chat. See you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Anita Chat podcast. If you haven't taken a minute to leave a review, I would absolutely love to hear from you. All you need to do is to search for the show, click your star rating, and type in a few words. Also, if there's a specific topic you'd like to see covered in this podcast, if you'd like me to be your coach, or if you want to just chat, feel free to send me an email or shoot me a message through my IG, which you'll find in the show notes. The show notes will also contain any links to the freebies that were referenced in this episode. Until next time, friends, it's been great chatting with you.